Hey, what is going on, everybody? My name is Monatui, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys our NPL Season 7 Week 4 match versus Gypsy King, coach of the Sydney Sharpedos. If you've not done so already, please check out his YouTube link in the description below. Like I said, my team builder, in my opinion, he is the absolute best in the entirety of draft format. He has won several leagues. He has won the NPL 2 times in a row. He had an undefeated season in the NPL. He is an absolutely incredible coach, and I highly recommend you checking him out. As you can see, for a bit of a team breakdown, although I do have an entire team builder dedicated to my team, we have our 4 attacks, Mega Low Punny, Low Kick, Return, Ice Punch, and Fake Out. We have Physical Defensive, Combine, Arena Clips, holding the Alola Raichi MZ. Unfortunately, as you can see, he does not have the Gothitelle or his Throw, so I won't be able to take knockoffs any better, and I won't be able to block a potential trick from the Gothitelle. Regardless, Arena Clips is still very good versus his team. The Combine set will be able to put in a lot of work versus his team, as nothing really wants to switch into Psychic plus Fighting. And a few things on his team are set up fodder. Potentially the Suicune, if it's not Roar, potentially the Quillfish, because I can threaten it out. The Mega Diancie I can set up on, assuming it's not Combine, and the Celestial I can set up on, assuming it's not Choice Banded. After that, we have our Specs Kyurem. We have our Physical Defensive, Mono Attacking Ice Fang Gliscor with Protect in order to block potential Z move from the Landorus, as well as to potentially scout moves. Then we have our Jolly Max Speed Choice Banded Tyranitar, and then we have our Specially Defensive Shed Shell Ferrothorn. Again, he does not have that Gothitelle, so Shed Shell's pretty useless. He didn't even bring the Decidueye, so I can't even be trapped by Spirit Shackle, or I can't even bluff the fact that I'm trapped by Spirit Shackle. But regardless, Ferrothorn is also pretty useful in this game, being able to potentially deal with the Suicune, as well as being able to get up rocks and pressure the majority of his team, because as you can see, he does not have hazard removal, and everything on his team takes stealth rocks neutrally. This is going to be a game I'm going to be pausing a little bit more than usual. This is a very intricate game, and I'm going up against a very, very good player, so I really want to make sure that I emphasize my thought process behind every turn. But regardless, let us just get into the game. As you're going to see here, I'm going to lead with my Kyurem, as he is going to lead with his Hydreigon. And I actually thought about this play for a little while, and the reason I thought about this play is I really didn't think he would be going right for the Draco Meteor. For one, I have a Ferrothorn in the back that could pivot into Draco Meteor. He'd go for Draco, he'd lose a little bit of momentum. I could live a Fire Blast from his -2 Hydreigon, and then I could get up Stealth Rock if I wanted to. There's a potential I'm Habanberry, and I could live the Draco no matter what and knock him out with the Ice Beam. There could be a potential, if he's not Scarfed, I could be Scarfed and hit him with the Ice Beam. However, I do not decide to make this play. That would be a very aggressive play, and I don't really feel like being that aggressive turn 1. So what I'm actually going to do is switch out into my Tyranitar, expecting not a Draco Meteor, because again, I didn't think he'd want a Draco Meteor or potential Ferrothorn. I was expecting either a Dark Pulse or a Fire Blast here as I go into my Tyranitar, and as he goes into Suicune. And now, as you can see, he's actually going to switch right out into his Quillfish. I'm assuming he wanted to get out his Quillfish immediately in order to start potentially setting up hazards. However, there's a very good chance that I'm faster than his Suicune, and even if I'm not faster than it, I want to find out how fast that Suicune is. In addition to that, I just really want damage onto that Suicune. Suicune's one of the things that I have to weaken in order to win with my Mega Low Punny. Also is the only thing really stopping my Kyurem from spamming Ice Beam. As you can see, nothing really switches into Specs Ice Beam, including this Quillfish. Even though it does resist, it will be taking a lot of damage from Specs Ice Beam. So I wanted to get a lot of damage off on a Suicune. There was a good chance I outsped it anyway, and even if he did go for Scald, he would have had to burn me in order to really cripple me. Regular Scald would not have done all that much to my Tyranitar in the sand. So I do actually end up going for Stone Edge this turn, and unfortunately we are going to miss. Which is a little bit annoying, because as you're going to see here, we go for another Stone Edge, and we do quite a bit of damage to this Quillfish. Had we hit the first time, there was potential that I could have 2-KO'd him. It wasn't a very high chance. I believe I had to get 2 relatively max roll Stone Edges in order to knock him out. However, there's no guarantee he would have stayed in on the second Stone Edge, because had I hit him the first time, I would have done about 44%. He then would have taken the other one, or taken the next Stone Edge, and then potentially died to sand, or would just allow himself to get very, very weakened. So he basically would have been stacking his Quillfish in order to get up a T-Spike, and there's no guarantee that he would have done that. He may have just taken the Stone Edge and then switched out into something else in order to keep his Quillfish healthy. But regardless, as you can see here, he is actually going to keep his Qwilfish healthy and hard switch into his Celesteela. With the Intimidate up, he would have been able to take that very well had I not just gotten the crit there. So the crit there definitely making up for the miss onto the Qwilfish Celesteela is a big problem to this team, and I'm very happy to have it weakened. As you can see, he goes for the Protect in order to block it, and he is still in range of the next Stone Edge. However, he's actually going to get the double Protect, which is a very good play on his part because now he will be able to live the next Stone Edge and on 2% and hit me with the Heavy Slam, which will put me in range of a number of things on his team at this point. Now here I'm expecting another Protect just to stall out my Stone Edges because I am actually running a little bit low on him at this point. He actually ends up going for the Leech Seed. Same thing, on Magic Guard on my Arena Cliffs, I really don't mind all that much. And now what I'm actually going to do is go right for the Calm Mind with my Arena Cliffs as he hard switches in his Diancie, which I thought was kind of a strange switch. As you can see here, he's just going to use it to get up his Stealth Rock, and then I'm going to hit him with a Psychic. And at this point, I don't think he's going to go hard into Hydreigon. I don't really have to predict if he does because I do live Dark Pulse afterwards and can knock him out with a Focus Blast. So I'm just going to go for another Psychic as he ends up stacking his Celesteela. Now, he's going to send in his Landers here, and this is the thing that I am most afraid of on his team, because Z Landers is absolutely horrifying. +2 Z Fly hurts everything on my team except for the Tyranitar, which obviously I can't go into because he has Stab Earthquake. But now, I cannot stay in with my Reuniclus. I don't want to take a Z-Fly, I need my Reuniclus for later. I'm going to go hard into my Gliscor as he sets up the Swords Dance. And this is sort of the opportunity I was looking for. I don't think he's going to go for the Z-Fly in order to scout for Protect, as well as if he goes for the Z-Fly, he just knocks out my Gliscor and I go right back out into Kyurem and deal with him, or threaten him out or knock him out, which is going to be very good for me. So expecting him to do something other than go for the Z-Fly, I'm going to go for the Ice Fang, do a decent amount of damage to him, and now that I'm back at full health, and now that he's +2/+2, I am going to go for that Protect as he goes for that Supersonic Sky Strike. And as you can see, with our physical defense investment, with the Protect weakening the Z move, we are going to be able to take that attack very, very easily, and he cannot knock me out with a +2 regular Fly. So now I can freely just go for Ice Fang as he decides to switch out. So I wasted the Z move on Landers, which is really good. I weakened it quite a bit, so now it's not a threat to my team. I can knock it out with Psychic if I wanted to, could knock it out with Ice Punch from Lopunny, could even do some good damage to it with Ferrothorn's Power Whip. It's in range of Tyranitar's Crunch at this point, so the Gliscor did its job beautifully. It was able to deal with that Landorus Therian in pretty much the most ideal fashion I could have asked for. He is going to send out his Suicune here. It's obviously going to take nothing from that Ice Fang, and now I am going to switch right out into my Ferrothorn as he is actually going to get up a sub. And this is kind of annoying for me, just because it can potentially pressure stall me, but he's actually going to reveal the Protect here. And this is also extremely annoying, because now I realize that this is going to be able to wall or stall out a very good majority of my team. We don't take a lot from Scald, and we can break his sub with a Power Whip. However, we have a limited amount of Power Whips. You know, unfortunately I can't hover over to show you guys exactly how much I have, but we have a very limited number of Power Whips here. I went for Stealth Rocks here, not just because I wanted to like ignore this threat, but also I just really wanted to get up. I expected him to go for the Protect instead of going for sub, just to stall out an extra turn of Power Whip. And now I'm going to go out into my Arena Clips, hoping that he's Roar rather than Calm Mind, as he actually does end up being Calm Mind. The reason I expected him to be Roar, or Toxic even, probably Roar, is because Vincoon is a very good set versus my team. Vincoon, if you don't know, is sub, Toxic, Protect, and Scald. I figured he would have Roar over Toxic just so that he could hit my Reuniclus and he could phase out a potential setup Reuniclus, which would be very useful. Plus, he does have Hazard Stack on his team with potential spikes as well as obvious T-Spikes and Stealth Rock, so Roar would have made a lot of sense versus me. He could stall out a lot of my Mons, force me to go out into something that could take Rocks damage like Kyurem to break its sub, and then he could go for the Roar, force me to take more hazards damage on a few other things, but he actually is the Calm Mind, which is a much bigger problem for me. Something I want to point out here, obviously I have Psychic over Psyshock. At this point, that wouldn't have been able to help me here. Psyshock would not have broken his sub if I did not get any prior damage off onto it, and because he is Pressure, obviously, as its best ability, and because he does have that sub-protect combination, he would have been able to PP stall me out of any Reuniclus that I was. Unless I had something like Thunder or Energy Ball, I would not have been able to break his sub in one hit, and he would have been able to just set up all over me, sub-protect until I ran out of Psychics and I ran out of Focus Blasts, and my life would be really, really sad. So as you can see here, he revealed the Calm Mind here, and now I'm terrified. I'm going to go right out into my Tyranitar, hoping that I outspeed this thing. I don't think he'd go for Scald on this turn. I think he'd go for something like the Protect or the Calm Mind. As you can see, he does go for the Calm Mind, and I really thought, okay, well, he can go for Protect here, but he's actually going to reveal to outspeed me here and go for Scald, which is actually pretty good information to have, because that means that my Gliscor more than likely does not outspeed this thing. My Gliscor only has 1 more point of speed than the Tyranitar. My Tyranitar's max speed hits 243, my Gliscor hits 244 because I outspeed max speed Celesteela by 1 point, so it's more than likely that I cannot go out in a Gliscor and I cannot taunt this thing. I wouldn't really want to at this point, because after I taunt it, even though I prevent it from going for most of its moves, obviously he's going to still be behind a sub, and he's a +2, so he'll just knock me out with the Scald, but that is something important to note that I cannot do later on if I wanted to. At this point, I'm actually going to go out into Kyurem, which may look like a weird switch, but I can't really go out into Ferrothorn. A, he has a chance to burn me with Scald, which means that I lose this 1v1, and B, I want to break this sub immediately, guaranteed. Obviously, since I'm poisoned on my Kyurem, I can't be burnt, which is kind of irrelevant at this point. I don't even know why I brought that up. But as you can see here, Specs Dragon Pulse actually is going to break this thing's sub even while he's at +2 special defense. So I'm just going to be spamming Dragon Pulse to the point where I can potentially weaken this thing so that my Ferrothorn has to take less Scalds and my Ferrothorn has a lesser chance of being burnt, because Kyurem I don't really need for this game. Diancie outspeeds it, Hydreigon outspeeds it. As you can see, this Suicune is going to beat it 1v1. I have a few things for the Quillfish, and Landorus is not too much of a threat anymore. So as you can see, my goal there was just to weaken him a little bit. My goal wasn't really successful. We only weakened him a little bit, and I'm going to have to risk a few burns with my Ferrothorn. But what I can actually do with this Suicune is potentially play around his pressure. I can predict when he's going for Protect, and I can go for moves other than Power Whip. And as you're going to see here, I actually go for Protect of my own, just to make sure that I don't use up my Power Whips. So as you can see, his obvious play here is to go for Sub, so I am going to go for that Power Whip. Now his obvious play is to go for the Protect in order to potentially stall out my Power Whips. He is going to go for that Protect, but I'm just going to go for the knockoff so that I can keep my Power Whips for this Suicune. And now he is actually going to be threatened out by this Ferrothorn. He's going to try and find the opportunity to set it up later on, because he knows that if I predict him correctly, which I have been doing the last couple turns, he will not be able to win this exchange. So he's going to send out his Hydreigon on the Power Whip, as he is then going to go for the Dark Pulse, which can knock out my Kyurem. However, he at this point is in range of my Mega Lopunny, so I'm going to go right out into that. And as you're going to see here, he is going to switch out, wanting to keep his Hydreigon around, and he's going to go right out into his Landorus Therian, stacking this to the return, which is pretty useful for me. He has 1 less Intimidate Mon. He has 1 less thing that can potentially deal with my, or can smack my team with Earthquakes and whatnot. But now, he's going to go back out into his Suicune. As you can see, I can go for return. If I had Toxic on this Lopunny, which I'm very, very sad that I didn't, this would have been so much easier, because now I would have been able to put the Suicune on a timer. He obviously does not have Rest. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have Heal Bell on his Mega Diancie. I would have been able to hit this thing with a Toxic, put him on a timer, switch out, save my Lopunny for later to potentially sweep his team, and we would have been in a great position. However, I am just going to go for the return in order to potentially do enough damage to the point where he cannot sub up again and force him to go for Protect. As you can see, that is not the case. He is just out of range of not being able to set up a Protect, so I'm going to go, or set up a sub, so I'm going to go right out into my Ferrothorn again. He is going to go for the Protect here. Obviously, it's going to fail, but he can go for the Protect on the following turn, and at this point, I'm just going to go for Knockoff in order to, again, just save up on my, my Power Whips. He's now going to go right out into his Hydreigon as I go for the Power Whip, and this is a bit of an issue to my team. Unfortunately, I don't have great switch-ins to this thing, so as you're going to see here, I'm going to go right out into my Gliscor as he clicks the Roost, so he reveals to obviously have Roost. And now what I'm basically going to do is try and sack off my my Gliscor. I'm going to go for Taunt here, expecting him to potentially pull a switch out into his Suicune, but obviously that is not what is going to happen. He's then going to go for the Dark Pulse, do quite a bit of damage to me, and I'm going to go for the Ice Fang, actually doing very, very little to this Hydreigon just because of how naturally bulky he is. And obviously I'm uninvested. Gliscor is not that strong on its own, and it's only a base 65 power move. But regardless, I'm just going to keep clicking Ice Fang. I'm okay with losing my Gliscor here. Having the fodder would be very nice, but versus his team, it doesn't really do anything at this point. I don't have a strong move to hit the Mega Diancie, even though it is a bit weakened at this point. As you can see, it's at 34%. I still don't believe I can knock it out from where it's at right now, and regardless, he can hit me with a very powerful Moonblast anyway. Quillfish, I obviously have nothing to hit that, and he can hit me with Scalds. Suicune, I do absolutely nothing to. And I'm essentially explaining this all as this is going on, because it's basically just me trying to get this Hydreigon as low as possible, while potentially keeping my Gliscor around as long as possible. It's not going to work out in my favor. Like, eventually my Gliscor is going to go down to this thing, but I'm just trying to keep this thing as low as physically possible so that I can keep it in range of Lopunny's return, and I can keep it in range of Reuniclus' Focus Blast. So regardless, as you can see, this is kind of going on for a little while. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit, but eventually, as you're going to see, he's actually going to make the switch out into Suicune. So he's going to go for Taunt here. That's very smart. I'm going to miss Ice Fang, doesn't really matter at this point, and this is the turn that he is going to switch out into a Suicune as I go for the Ice Fang. And I wanted to predict this at some point, but I wasn't sure when he would go out into Suicune, and I couldn't risk any of my other Mons. I couldn't risk potentially switching them into a Dark Pulse. So, as you can see, I'm going to hard switch into Ferrothorn. He does get the burn at this point, which is catastrophic for me, because this means that Power Whip will no longer be able to break his sub. So I'm going to go for Power Whip here. He does go for the Protect in order to block it. But as you're going to see here, I have to switch out, because like I said, a Power Whip will not be able to break this thing's sub. And I'm going to set the speed to fast once again, just because this is going to be a transition that takes a long time. In theory, I have a chance to beat this Suicune 1v1, just because I have natural recovery and he does not. He has to rely entirely on leftovers and being able to go for Protect. So as you can see here, we're just going to have a Combine War here. We're both going to get up to +6/+6, and I can potentially win this game if I am able to beat this thing in a Combine War. Obviously he has pressure, but I can potentially play around that. If I can predict his Protects properly and go for a Combine on his Protect and then go for a Psychic to break his sub, then we can potentially put ourselves in a very good position. As you're going to see, he's going to get to +6/+6. I'm at +6/+6. The war is about to begin. He's going to go for Scald, and just like that, the war is going to be over because he crits me with the Scald. And this is 100% GG. There's absolutely nothing I can do. He's a +6/+6 Suicune. My Ferrothorn is burnt. Like I said, Power Whip still doesn't break this thing's sub. My Mega Lopunny can break its sub, but it's not really going to matter. And he's going to end up winning this game 4-0. So as you're going to see here, I click Return just to break its sub, in case I was magically an Infiltrator Mega Lopunny and I crit him or something. But that's obviously not the case. I'm going to go out into Ferrothorn, just kind of to show off the bulk of it, because even at +6, this thing will not be able to knock me out with the Scald, even after a turn of burn damage. As you can see there, Power Whip is not going to break his sub. He's going to get some leftovers there. He's going to go for the Scald here. Again, we are going to live because Ferrothorn's a beast, but regardless, we're just not going to be able to do enough damage to him to put him outside of range of a sub, and regardless, at this point, Gliscor is not going to be able to beat the rest of his team. So we're going to send in our Gliscor. He's going to click Scald. We're going to die. It actually turned out that my Gliscor and his Suicune actually sped tied, because we both hit 244 to outspeed our base 61 Pokemon, which is funny. Like, I wanted to outspeed his Celesteela, he wanted to outspeed my Tyranitar, so that's kind of funny. But regardless, very much GG to Gypsy King. I feel like I prepped this game very, very well. As you saw, early game I had a lot of momentum, things were going really, really well for me, and that kind of fell apart once he revealed the set on his Suicune. Sub-Toxic, no, not Sub-Toxic, but Sub-Protect, Combine Scald completely destroyed my team. Like I said, even if I were a Psyshock variant on Reuniclus, it wouldn't have mattered for two reasons. For one, he could have just pressure stalled me out with Sub and Protect, assuming I was not able to predict him correctly, and B, obviously, as you saw at the end there, once I got up to +6, and once he got up to +6, he just ended up critting me anyway. But regardless, the crit obviously is not Gypsy's fault. I got a little bit of hacks early game, he also got a little bit of hacks early game. It's pretty difficult to tell which of the hacks mattered a little bit more. Obviously, weakening Quillfish and potentially stopping it from getting up T-Spikes would have been really, really nice, but also very obviously critting the Celesteela and getting a huge amount of damage off onto that, which is one of the bigger threats to my team. That was also really, really big, especially because he couldn't Leech Seed recover off of my Reuniclus. which is really important. He was actually kind of forced to sack it off later on because my Reuniclus was a big enough threat. So the hacks early game, relatively even. It's tough to theorem on what would have happened there. Then obviously the crit at the end, I don't know if that would have mattered. Those last series of plays between Reuniclus and Suicune would have determined the game. It would have come down to whether or not A, I didn't get crit, B, could I get enough damage off to him before he was able to PP stall me out, and C, would I have been able to predict every time he was going to go for protect, every time he was going to go for sub, go for my attacking move when I thought he wasn't going to protect, or when he wasn't going to sub, or when he was behind a sub, so that I could potentially break it and weaken him. It would have been a very difficult end game for me, but it also wouldn't have been the easiest end game for him, and regardless, that didn't end up happening because he crit me. Again, not his fault. It kind of just denied us of a pretty interesting end game potential, but regardless, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I put up my best effort against somebody who I consider to be the best in draft format, and honestly, even though it was a 4-0, it was a pretty close 4-0. As you can see, Quillfish was weakened, Diancie was weakened, even the Hydreigon was a little bit weakened. As you can see, it's in range. Everything is in range of Mega Lopunny at this point, bar the Suicune and potentially bar the Quillfish, so I set up myself for the end game, but his prep was just a little bit too strong with the Suicune. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Next week we are going up against Rizzy Pao, coach of the Phoenix Sunflora. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. Again, very good game to Gypsy King. No shame in losing to him, and I will see you guys in the next game.